thanks for taking the time to chat with me, Lucas. I know being a musician, you obviously got like Friday nights and weekends are like ideal time to jam and get your stuff going, but I'd really appreciate it. So
no, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I prepared some questions. I think you'll like them because they're kind of related to your new album that you just released on time, which I really enjoyed, by the way. Really solid stuff. So my first question for you is, does time have a definite form? What do you think of when you consider concepts of past, present, and future?
I don't necessarily think that time has a definite form.
Yeah.
Time can be. It seems to me like time is just more. Relates to like the individual person more than it relates to like a whole concept as itself. So everybody like feels time differently.
Right.
And past, present, and future. I don't know. That's not something that I spend a whole lot of time. Thinking about, but I think the whole concept in general, there's just a lot of bleed from everything, like even with like deja vu and things like that. There's no real definite past or future, really.
So for you, time isn't linear. It's sort of relational to sort of your experiences and things like that, kind of? Is that where you're going with it?
Yeah.
Awesome, okay.
Yeah, like I would just, like, the way that I feel time, I would imagine would be different from the way that you would, or anybody else would.
Right. And so relating that to, you know, your music and what you do you find that sort of informs your decision-making process? Because, you know, we chatted about your music and you said you're trying to reach a certain type of crowd, which, you know, happens to be a little bit older. So do you think that sort of informs that decision-making process at all?
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially in just the concept of the passing of time.
Yeah.
Is something that is pretty present in the songwriting on my new record.
Right.
So that's definitely something that that I was thinking about while I was writing those tunes.
Right.
But I don't necessarily, I don't really do, or I don't do anything to reach like a certain audience. I think that I've always just done things the way that I do them, and it happens that my audience has kind of become like an older audience for like a variety of different reasons, but it's not something that I like consciously. Yeah, like I didn't have like a target market or anything. It was just like kind of happened that like those are the people mostly that listen to like public radio and go to soft seat shows and stuff like that, and that's kind of the world that I got myself into.
Awesome. Great. That's great answer. Okay, so this is kind of a fun question, but do you think it's possible to travel in time, and do you think we can trace the beginning of time? Now, obviously, you already kind of talked about time being relational, but, you know, what do you think of that?
I don't know, as far as like actually like jumping into a DeLorean and heading back in time.
Yeah.
I don't really have the like background to really like have an intelligent conversation on whether that's possible, but I think that the human mind is just kind of built in a way where we travel in time constantly, and we're always like remembering things or looking forward to the future, and like dreams that we're having, of like things that we hope pan out in the future. It's just like, you know, like I think things that you can do like in your own head are pretty limitless.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a question of, do you think of time in terms of matter, or do you think of it in terms of like you said, like personal experiences and life from your own perspective, right? So if you really want to like get highly philosophical about it.
Yeah.
It could be, yeah, we could talk about this for hours, obviously. And I don't claim to be an expert either. I just think it's kind of an interesting question, and I think sort of with the concepts that you're playing with in terms of like telling stories that are personal to you but also sort of fragmented, and then also telling stories of, and I assume they're from people in your life or caricatures of people, or maybe not even caricatures, maybe just characters, but and then some of them are invented, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, thinking of that in terms of traveling in time, like I think that was very poetic what you just said about how human beings are sort of like, or like bioorganic time traveling machines.
Yes.
That's actually a really cool point. I don't think I've ever heard someone put it that way, but it's very true. Who are some of your personal heroes that have sort of helped frame who you are, and more specifically your discipline?
Man, there's a lot of personal heroes. Definitely, like, both my parents are people that I look up to and have always looked up to.
Yeah.
But as far as like idols, especially musically, people that I looked up to, I always really looked up to people like Neil Young was always a big one.
Oh yeah.
Just because he was like, he's like my dad's favorite singer, and there was always Neil Young playing in the house, or like he was playing Neil Young tunes on guitar. So that was kind of inherently like programmed into my brain.
Do you think it, or is that something that sort of like factors into your character or your personality? You know, people who are big into the community or surrounding areas.
I don't know. I really like. I enjoyed all the music that we had playing around the house.
Yeah.
My mom was like big into funk and Motown kind of stuff, and soul music. and I love that stuff, and I still listen to that stuff all the time. I listen to really like everything. But when I was growing up, and still even now, like the popular music that everybody my age was listening to is just like didn't really speak to me, just because I don't know. I think that the most important thing for me when it comes to listening to music is that it has to feel like it comes from somewhere real, like even if it's electronic music.
Why have you dedicated so much of your efforts on one particular passion?
It's like really the only thing that I've ever been strongly passionate about.
Right.
So I just kind of like put all my energy into that. I've always enjoyed other things. I enjoy like cooking and food a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy art, but I'm hopeless at creating it. It just like naturally I've worked harder at music than I have like at anything really at school or
Right.
in my personal life. So.
Yeah, that's fair. No, the reason I ask is like some people, you know, they're multidisciplinary and they can sort of do everything and they're happy to do it, and they seem that they like ubermensch and they can like just do fucking it all. And I myself like to dabble, but even then when I'm dabbling, I feel like, well, I can't handle this much stuff. So I generally tend to visual arts and writing. Like those are my two mainstays. So that's why I ask you, because like you're like one dedicated guy when it comes to your music. So you know, it's just a curious question.
Yeah.
Because all creative types deal with their creativity differently, right? So yeah.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes I think it would be cool to venture out and like maybe even do some creative writing or something like that, but I don't have the same drive to do that I do to make music.
Right. Fair enough. Do you think human beings are just machines? Like I have a friend, she used to say it's like we're organic we're cyborgs. Like we're organic, but we're also made of material. And do you think we have destinies?
For someone like me, that like I really don't. I'm kind of I'm like I was born in Canada.
Yeah.
To like a middle class family.
Yeah.
And like I'm white and I'm a man and I kind of like I have every advantage.
Yeah.
In the world. So I think that I don't really have I'm kind of the controller of my own destiny and everything good that happens to me.
Mm-hmm.
That I can control is going to be because of the choices that I make, and all the bad things that happen are going to be because of the choices that I make. But there's like, I don't know, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because there's some people that are, might be much more capable than me, but are just born into a situation that they can't dig themselves out of.
Right.
So I guess I don't really believe in destiny.
Okay, interesting question. Have you ever read the book The Alchemist, or do you know anything about it?
I haven't read it.
But you've heard of it.
I've heard of it.
Do you believe in that idea that everyone sort of has something that is their greatest gift or their greatest ability, and that people in general squander that, and then if you do, you'll find happiness if you just keep pursuing it? I mean, it's not the same thing as destiny, because it means that you still have free will and you can choose to do or not something, but what do you think of that idea?
Yeah, I think that idea makes a lot of sense too.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I like, more than anything, I think that I believe in just like the power of humans' ability to like affect themselves. You're responsible for every part of your life, because if I was born in like a third world country in like a little hut somewhere,
yeah,
then I probably wouldn't be pursuing a music career right now. I'd be like trying to stay alive,
right,
and like eat food and support a family.
yeah.
So
yes, there's different.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to think about that one.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. What's one of your favorite productivity hacks, like life hacks? Like idea life hacks, like, or what do you do that gives you like insane productivity?
Insane productivity. I don't know that I've ever been like insanely productive. I feel like I'm most productive if I can just like shut myself out from everything.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, that's kind of how I tried to write a lot of the songs for this recording.
Yeah.
I just went out to like my parents have, their neighbors have this trailer.
Yeah.
That's parked on a little lot on Balfour Bay, which is right on Kootenay Lake.
Okay.
In BC, so I just went there and for like a good, like almost a month, just I didn't have any responsibilities. I just like would wake up, eat breakfast, go outside, and sit on the dock and try and write songs, and so I think that's, I don't know, it's not a great productivity hack, but it's just like concentrating on writing songs more than anything else. Everything that happens in everyday life, like, it's something that I feel like sometimes I can like push aside, be like, oh, it's not important, like, but it really is probably the most important thing that I could be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny because like when I think of productivity, I think of it as doing something that you really want to be doing, not necessarily something that like the world deems appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when I'm productive, I'm making art, or I'm writing, or I'm meeting interesting people and networking. like I feel unproductive when I'm doing my day job. I feel unproductive when I'm cleaning up around the house. I feel unproductive when I'm making food. Do you believe that you can truly experience anything objectively?
For me, like I can't experience anything objectively, and it's hard for me to even to write from like a totally objective point of view.
Right.
I just like, yeah, it's really hard for me to remove myself from anything, which probably isn't the greatest. Like, it's healthy to be able to remove yourself, especially when you're making decisions. But for me, like, I don't think that I could experience anything completely objectively.
But would you also say that in some ways it actually helps you make better art because you're really putting yourself into everything that you do? I mean, and maybe it's impacting your life negatively in weird ways, but when it comes to your expression of who you are or your view of the world, it's sort of a truer picture, right? Because you're saying, you know, I'm Lucas and this is what I see.
Yeah. I think that it helps me make a different kind of art, not necessarily better.
Right.
Because like everything I do is like personal, even if it's not. Like there's some stuff that's obviously personal that I've written, but even the stuff that's kind of buried in more metaphors comes from somewhere that's very personal, and for me, like that's the kind of art that I appreciate, but not everybody does, and it would be interesting for me to try and make art for someone, but it's something that I've never been able to do.
Yeah, so like you probably couldn't write jingles or...
yeah, well I have a really hard time with it, even with co-writing.
Right.
Some people are really good at it, and like a lot of the music and a lot of the art in general that like is the most consumed, most popular.
Yeah.
These days doesn't come from a place that's very personal at all. It comes from like a group of like 6 guys in a room that need to write like a love song that day, and they do that, or they need to write a song about like a truck, and they'll write a song about a truck.
Yeah.
And there's like definitely something to be said about that, but for me, when there's other people in the room and when you're just kind of like fishing for something that it isn't there, it takes like the whole personal aspect out of the art that you're making.
Yeah.
And I mean it's something too that a lot of the feedback that I get from performances or just from my recordings and stuff is that people find it really easy to make a connection with me, like when I'm on stage or when they're listening to my recording, and I don't think that comes from anywhere else other than just the input. Like when I write the song or when I'm performing the song, it all comes from a very personal place. So so people have like an easier time letting their guard down. Do
you have a specific dream for the near future?
A specific dream for the near future?
Yeah.
Yeah. I really want to tour Europe.
Okay.
As a do a headliner tour of Europe. Something that I've never done.
Yeah.
And has never even really been like an option. But the new record is something that like would be definitely worth marketing. There, and we've had a little bit of feedback from across the ocean already.
Oh yeah.
So that's something that I think is within the realm of possibility for the next like few years, and that's definitely a goal of mine.
Awesome. And why Europe? There's
just like a bigger appetite for the kind of music that I make. I think think Canada, there like, for roots music in Canada, there's a huge appetite. Touring Canada is like logistically pretty difficult because it's massive, and there's not a lot of population density really in most anywhere that's not Southern Ontario.
Yeah.
So Canada has like a lot of appreciation, but logistically it doesn't make sense. And Europe, I've never even been to Europe, but from what I've heard, especially from all my music friends that have been over there touring, it seems kind of like the land of milk and honey.
Yeah.
It's just like everybody appreciates the music. People will come out and pack a room even if they've never heard of you before, and they'll buy your merch, and then like next time you play, they'll all bring 3 friends, and it'll be even like, it just seems like
more culture. Like everyone's got more appetite for culture.
Yeah, well, it's especially in certain like parts of Europe.
When you look at like major records and success they get, like you can see success on the American charts and you can see success on United Kingdom charts, and they may sometimes be intertwined, but sometimes they're separate from each other. So like it is technically another platform for you to reach fans, right? Like potential fans. Yeah,
there's a lot of artists, especially like in the kind of same world that I come from.
Yeah.
That broke in the UK before.
Yeah.
North America.
I mean, obviously, like I said, United Kingdom is like a very specific part of Europe, but it's there are other ways to get in there too. So yeah, it makes sense. Cool. That sounds really cool, actually. I'd be curious to see like how quickly you can get yourself out there and just dive like right in with both feet.
Yeah.
Would you like? I mean, you want to tour, right? Like, if you were to do it, would you like make it a long-term thing, or would you kind of just play it by ear and like test the waters a bit first?
Yeah, well, it's not something that I would just like jump in.
Yeah.
To doing, but once we have like the infrastructure kind of that I need set up there, it's something worth considering.
Yeah.
I think like it's kind of ambitious to think that to go to a whole new continent where that you've never been before.
Yeah.
And play shows and expect anybody at all to come is like pretty ambitious. So obviously like we want to have a booking agent in place and like a tour manager and
for sure. Okay, so last question.
Okay.
Sort of leave it on like a lighter note. Are you happy with what you're doing today in your life?
Yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah.
There are a few adjustments that I would like to make to be happier.
Yeah.
Quitting my job, being like #1 with a bullet.
Yeah.
On that list, but I mean I can't really complain. I get paid to like write songs and sing them to people, and I get to do it with some of my best friends.
Yeah.
So I can't really imagine that there's a lot of people that have like a better
yeah, for sure,
better life than that. I get to do what I want to do, and I get to do it with the people I want to do it with.
Yeah. You mean you have a little bit of trade-off in terms of responsibility in order to get out and do what you want to do, but that's part of life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of what this whole thing is about for me, and why, part of the reason why I interviewed you is because I'm trying to find people who are achieving success in the arts and how they're doing it in a way that makes sense for them, and sort of provide that I guess we would call like foundation or network or availability to people who are just starting out, because I think we talked about this a bit before when we met the first time, but Edmonton's got like this cool vibe about it that allows you to be totally in the scene and experiencing things, and if you know where to go, you can have something to do. Like you said, you go and see musical acts like 2 or 3 times a week, right? Like you can go and see music or theater or galleries or what have you, whatever you're into, right? But to find the time to be dedicated to it, that's a totally different story, right?
Yeah.
And you're doing it. So that's kudos to you for one, and you know, the second thing is, you know, again, thank you for taking the time to chat with me about sort of your thoughts on some things. And like I said, I think your new album's really awesome, and I look forward to hearing about your future success, because I think you're very talented. So.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a nice chat.
Absolutely. So leave it there, and hopefully we can connect sometime in the future, and
For sure.
and maybe do something else, maybe get more people involved or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Thanks, Lucas.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Awesome.